She pours your wine and looks at you with a smile that holds no warmth. You're sick, and she's taking care of you. Too much care. Dinner made of your favorite dishes, soft touches, kisses, and then darkness. But you no longer believe in coincidences. When she turns away, you quietly switch the glasses. Everything changed the moment you realized. The affair was just the tip of the iceberg. Behind her tender voice lies calculation. Behind every darling, a cold thirst for gain. She planned it all, the doses, the alibis, the inheritance. But she made one mistake. You're no fool. You're an architect. You know how to build. Now, you're building a trap. She had a plan. You have the evidence. Ahead lies the courtroom, the cameras, the exposure, and the long-awaited endgame. But this isn't a game of survival. It's a game of intellect. And this time, you're the one writing the rules. Is she ready for the rematch? Hi, my viewer. A quick request before we start. Please subscribe to my friend's channel. Links in the description. He'll appreciate it. Now, on with the video. The earliest signs were barely perceptible, like hairline fractures beneath a pristine surface. Harvey Cross sat in his study, staring at the financial reports glowing from his desktop screen, though his mind wandered. His thoughts kept circling back to the recent, almost imperceptible changes in Alicia's demeanor. She had always been confident, tenacious to the core. That unrelenting ambition had initially drawn him in, but something in her had shifted. His gaze drifted to the framed photo at the edge of his desk, taken during their anniversary getaway to the Amalfi Coast 2 years ago. Alicia's smile in the picture was radiant and unmistakably genuine. Her arm had been snugly wrapped around him as they posed before the boundless sea. When had she last looked at him with such warmth? The rapid clack of heels on the hardwood floor snapped him out of the memory. Alicia stood in the doorway, flawlessly composed in a navy blue suit tailored with precision. Her blonde hair was swept into a neat chignon. She adjusted an earring with the ease of someone who'd done it countless times. "Late meeting tonight?" Harvey asked, glancing at the clock. It was well past 7. She didn't look up. "Yeah. The Peterson case needed a complete revamp." "I thought Marcus had that account," he said. For a split second, something flickered in her expression, irritation, perhaps, or discomfort, before it was replaced with a smooth, neutral mask. "They've started rotating the portfolios. It's a new corporate policy." Harvey leaned back in his chair, studying her quietly. "Makes sense. Want to grab dinner? I could get us a reservation at Vincenzo's." "Rain check," she said without turning, already engrossed in her phone. "I told Sarah I'd meet her for drinks. It's been a while." Sarah, the same college friend who had moved to Seattle years ago. Harvey kept his tone light. "She's still with that startup?" "She's doing amazing. Really thriving." Her response came too easily, the words practiced. After she left, Harvey logged into their shared phone account from his laptop. Within 20 minutes, he had the answer. There hadn't been a single call or message to Sarah in more than 6 months. The deceptions were small, but they added up. Like those yoga classes she returned from looking freshly made up and dressed like she was heading to a gala. Or the business lunches that never appeared on her calendar, even when he stopped by unexpectedly. Or how she shielded her phone from view, typing with a fervor that didn't suit casual chatting. One morning, as they moved silently through the bright kitchen, Harvey decided to test the waters, just a little. "Saw Julian from your firm yesterday?" he said, stirring sugar into his coffee. "He mentioned seeing you at that place near Preston and Associates." Alicia's hand paused momentarily as she reached for her mug. "Oh, yeah. He wanted to talk about the Morrison project. He said it was all wrapped up, and that you handled it really well. That was nice of him. Funny thing is, you told me last night that project was still keeping you late at the office." The pause that followed was subtle, but stretched a few seconds too long. Then Alicia turned, wearing a smile that looked carefully placed. You must have misunderstood. I said I'm working on next quarter's Morrison projections. The deal itself closed, but there's still plenty to manage." She walked over and kissed his cheek. Her fragrance had changed. It was unfamiliar and lingered after she stepped away. "Don't wait up, okay? There's a strategy dinner." Once she left, Harvey returned to his office and sat staring at the open real estate listings on his screen. The words blurred before his eyes. 12 years of marriage, and not once had he doubted her honesty. Now, every word felt curated. The first clear proof arrived on a Wednesday. Harvey was home, knee-deep in zoning applications, when he heard her voice drifting up from the kitchen. She must have thought he was still off at a site inspection. "I can't talk now," she said in a rushed whisper. A pause, then the creak of footsteps as he descended. By the time he reached the kitchen, she was already putting her phone away, her face composed, though a faint flush colored her cheeks. "Forgot some documents," she said, heading toward the door, just stepping out again. That night, after she claimed another work dinner, Harvey drove to Preston and Associates. The building sat dark, lit only by safety lights. The garage was empty. Alicia's Tesla wasn't there. He clutched the steering wheel until his fingers went numb. A part of him wanted to confront her immediately, demand answers. But the other part, the one that had built entire communities through foresight and patience, held him back. If he was wrong, everything would be destroyed. If he was right, he needed something incontrovertible. The next morning, he installed a location tracking app on the shared iPad she occasionally used for work. The act made his stomach churn. But doing nothing, living in uncertainty, was worse. 2 days later, a notification appeared. Alicia's current location, the Grand Meridian Hotel downtown. Harvey stared at the screen, heart thudding. She was supposed to be at a dinner across town in Brookside. He hadn't intended to trail her. But the following Thursday, after she kissed him goodbye and murmured something about a late meeting, he counted to 5, then headed to his car. The ride into the city passed in a haze, his mind looping through increasingly troubling possibilities. The Grand Meridian's entrance radiated affluence, marble floors gleaming underfoot, soft jazz drifting lazily through the air, and chandeliers casting golden light over tastefully expensive furnishings. Harvey selected a leather armchair nestled discreetly behind a towering indoor palm, his heartbeat thudding against his throat. In that moment, his life felt alien to him, as though he were an extra in someone else's plot. At precisely 8:15, Alicia emerged from the elevator. She wasn't alone. A tall man with composed bearing walked beside her, his suit flawlessly tailored, the kind that hinted at silent prestige. Roman Lasker. Harvey recognized him from charity galas and high society mixers. He was the product of inherited wealth, multiplied through shrewd real estate deals, and he was known for his habit of pursuing married women. They had collaborated once on a commercial real estate venture that netted them both a handsome return. Now, striding across the spotless lobby, they didn't touch, but the subtleties were obvious. The tilt of Alicia's body toward him, the unspoken rhythm in their synchronized steps. As they passed near Harvey's concealed seat, a fragment of conversation reached him. "We can't keep doing this," Alicia said, though her tone held playful warmth, not genuine protest. Roman's laugh was effortless and polished. "Relax, sweetheart. It's all falling into place. Harvey won't be an issue much longer. Trust me." Harvey sat frozen behind the leaves long after they'd moved on, the world around him suddenly off-kilter. Yes, things were aligning, but not in the way they believed. He pulled out his phone and began noting everything. Phrases, timestamps, locations. If they wanted a battle, he would meet them fully equipped. Across the next 2 weeks, he compiled evidence with surgical care. The GPS tracker he'd planted captured every secret rendezvous, every so-called meeting that turned out to be a dimly lit restaurant or hotel suite. He amassed photographs, documented every timestamp, and created a detailed chronology any prosecutor would envy. Still, something gnawed at him. Alicia's newfound attentiveness didn't resemble guilt. It felt calculated. She was suddenly devoted, preparing intricate meals, always refilling his glass. The way she looked at him when he mentioned dizziness or exhaustion, it wasn't apathetic. It was too focused. It didn't read as remorse. It felt intentional. The realization struck him on a quiet Sunday night. She'd made his favorite dinner, herb-crusted salmon with perfectly caramelized vegetables. She uncorked an expensive bottle of Cabernet and stayed close as she poured. "You work too hard," she murmured with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "You really need to relax more." Something about her voice made his skin crawl. While her attention wandered for a moment, he silently switched their wine glasses. He watched her lift the glass meant for him, hesitate, then delicately set it down. "Not in the mood?" he asked lightly. "Headache," she replied in a low voice. "I'll just have water." Later that night, while she slept, Harvey used small sample vials, left over from his workplace's drug testing kits, to collect fluid from both glasses. The next day, he contacted a trusted contractor friend with access to a confidential testing facility. The lab report was bone-chilling. His glass contained a strong tranquilizer, powerful enough to knock out a grown man, and another unidentified compound the lab couldn't immediately identify. This wasn't simple betrayal. This was careful planning. Alicia wasn't just having an affair. She was plotting to kill him. That night, lying beside her as she slept, her breathing calm and even, he didn't feel afraid. He wasn't even angry. A strange, glacial calm settled over him. The woman who had once shared his hopes, his bed, his future, was now orchestrating his death. He whispered into the darkness beside her, "Sleep well." She didn't stir, but she would need the rest. From that night forward, Harvey changed strategy. He documented everything with precision, photographing each plate before eating, preserving samples from every drink she poured, noting every unexplained wave of illness that followed her tenderness. One evening, after vomiting violently from what had seemed like a tampered cup of coffee, he felt her rub his back in a show of concern. "You really ought to see a doctor," she said, her voice syrupy with fake concern. "These episodes are getting worse." "Maybe you're right," he murmured, noticing the faint tightness in her fingers where they rested on his shoulder. "I'll set something up with Dr. Mitchell." "No," she responded too quickly, then softened her tone. "I just don't want you to worry about that right now. You've got that big meeting tomorrow, remember?" He nodded slowly. "Yeah, but health comes first, doesn't it?" Her smile wavered, just briefly. "Of course, darling. Always." Later that night, once she'd drifted off, he made another entry in his phone's encrypted journal. Attempted poisoning, incident number 4 this week. Symptoms, nausea, dizziness. Estimated dose has increased. She's growing more reckless. Everything reached a crescendo 3 weeks later. That morning, Alicia handed him a steaming mug of coffee, flavored with his favorite hazelnut creamer. She was unusually affectionate, light touches on his arm, unusually pointed questions about his day's itinerary. He took a sip and instantly sensed something wrong. The familiar sweetness didn't mask the bitterness underneath. Within an hour, his vision went hazy. His heartbeat roared in his ears. His hands began to tremble uncontrollably. Barely upright, Harvey staggered toward his car, fumbling the keys into the ignition. The hospital was only 10 minutes away. He forced himself to concentrate, fully aware this might be the only chance he'd get to obtain solid evidence. Inside the emergency room, the medical personnel moved with precision, drawing his blood and running an array of tests. When the lab work came back, showing dangerously elevated levels of multiple substances, including digitalis, Harvey reacted with practiced shock and confusion. "I don't understand," he said to the attending physician, injecting just the right amount of bewilderment into his voice. Could this be from something I ate? He added. Dr. Preston, her expression tight with concern and years of clinical insight, studied the chart with a deepening furrow in her brow. Mr. Cross, these compounds aren't something you'd accidentally consume, she said. I'm obligated by law to contact the authorities when poisoning is a possibility. Harvey leaned forward slightly, letting his voice waver enough to make the plea sound genuine. Please, I just need a moment to wrap my head around this. To figure out what's happening. Can we wait, just for a little while? She straightened, her voice turning firm. This isn't a mild illness, Mr. Cross. The levels in your system suggest someone meant to harm you. He lowered his voice to a near whisper. Just 3 days. Give me 72 hours to deal with this in my own way. Please. Preston paused, clearly torn, but at last gave a reluctant nod. 72 hours. After that, I'm required to file a report. Her gaze met his with quiet intensity. Be careful, Mr. Cross. Whoever did this may not be finished. Alicia swept into the hospital like a gust of luxury perfume and carefully crafted distress. Darling, I was losing my mind, she cried, clutching his hand tightly, her fingers cold and tense. What happened to you? He gave her hand the barest squeeze in return, noting how her gaze flicked toward the IV stand, calculating, assessing. Just a bad reaction, he murmured. They're keeping me here overnight to be safe. Should I call Dr. Mitchell? Maybe it's worth a second opinion. No need, he replied, managing a tired smile. The team here knows what they're doing. You should get some rest. Don't be silly, she said, brushing off the suggestion. I'm not leaving you. She settled into the chair beside his bed and pulled out her phone. I'll just send a quick message to the office. Through nearly shut eyes, he watched her thumbs dart across the screen. He'd bet his next big commission that she was messaging Roman, letting him know things hadn't gone according to plan. Let her think she still had him duped. Let her believe he was the same naive fool they'd been manipulating. That night, as Alicia dozed in the chair beside him, Harvey quietly began crafting his plan for revenge. She prided herself on precision, on being untraceable, but she had no idea what was coming her way. As he studied her in the dim glow of the hospital room, he thought of the woman he'd once loved and the life they'd carefully constructed together. All of it had been a fabrication, but she wasn't the only one capable of deception. Let her think she'd won. Let her believe he was broken, oblivious, and trusting. Harvey Cross had just survived her first real attempt on his life, and he meant to make sure it would also be her last. The rules had changed. From now on, he would be the one in control. He was discharged on a crisp autumn morning, the sort of day he used to associate with new beginnings. But every step he took into his home felt like walking into enemy territory. Alicia hovered nearby, immaculate as ever, her scarf draped elegantly, the picture of a devoted spouse. The bed's all made, she said, lightly touching his arm. I changed the linens. I'll stay in the guest room. He let weariness color his voice, playing the role of a man still recovering. That's not necessary, sweetheart. You need your sleep too. And the guest room's closer to the bathroom. He managed a faint smile, in case the symptoms return. For a brief second, he saw something flash behind her eyes, sharp, maybe annoyed, but it vanished instantly. I'll make you some tea, she offered. No. His reply came out too sharply, and he softened it quickly. Just water, please. Doctor's orders. Her shoulders stiffened slightly, a detail most wouldn't catch. But Harvey had spent weeks learning every nuance of her behavior. He noticed it, the flicker of irritation before she replaced it with a pleasant smile. Of course. Whatever you need. She turned and walked toward the kitchen, her steps echoing softly. I've cleared my schedule for the next few days. I'll be around to take care of you. To finish the job, he thought darkly. Out loud, he only said, You're too good to me. Over the next several days, Harvey maintained the act without a single misstep. He stayed home under the guise of needing rest, accepted Alicia's hovering presence with apparent gratitude, and feigned sleep while she fired off panicked texts to someone. One evening, as he reviewed architectural plans in his study, he heard her voice drifting up from the kitchen. Quiet, tense. "It's taking too long," she whispered. "He's stronger than we expected." A silence followed. "No, I can't raise the dose again. It still has to look natural." Another pause. "Yes, I know what's at stake." Harvey kept the recording app running without pause. His hand didn't tremble, even though fury simmered quietly beneath his calm exterior. When he heard her footsteps approaching, he swiftly switched to a spreadsheet on his screen. "Burning the midnight oil?" she asked, lounging in the doorway with a voice tinged with faux sympathy. "Just rechecking numbers for the River Heights project," he said, touching his temple with 2 fingers. "Still nursing a bit of a migraine." "You poor guy." She slipped behind him, letting her hands rest lightly on his shoulders. "You know what might help?" she offered. "That remedy I picked up from that herbalist downtown." "Actually," he interjected, "my thoughts have been stuck on something else. My life insurance policy." He noticed the subtle tightening of her grip on his shirt. "These little health scares really make you realize how fragile everything is," he added, tone casual. Alicia moved around the desk and perched herself on its edge, face unreadable. "What about it?" "It hasn't been reviewed in a long time," he said. "I'm worth considerably more now than when we first signed it," he continued, reclining in his chair to watch her reaction. "I just want to be sure you're taken care of if anything happens." "Don't say things like that," she said quickly, but he caught the flicker in her eyes and the sudden sharp intake of breath. "You're going to be fine," she insisted. "Still," he pressed, "the company's scaling fast. Once the rezoning's finalized, that property will triple our assets." "Triple?" she echoed, trying to sound nonchalant, though he could hear the strain behind it. "The same plot Roman Lasker tried to buy out last year," he said. "Ring a bell?" She gave a short, tight smile. "Not really. I hardly know him." "That's odd," he said smoothly. "I could have sworn I saw his Bentley outside your office last week. Hard car to miss." "Did you?" she said, her voice level, controlled, but her fingers were spinning her wedding ring, one of the nervous habits he'd learned to notice. "I handle a couple of his firm's smaller accounts, nothing major." That night, when she thought he was sleeping, she slipped into her study. "He brought it up today," she whispered. "No, he doesn't have a clue. Just stay patient. It's all falling into place." "Yes, the policy. He mentioned it himself," she said. "It's close, Roman, I promise." The following morning, Harvey acted. Detective Lauren Winslow worked out of a converted brownstone nestled in the city's core. Nothing flashy, just the quiet confidence of someone who delivered results. In the world of domestic cases, her name carried weight, though few grasped how far her reach extended. "Mr. Cross," she said, watching him steadily from across the desk, her gaze sharp and unblinking. She looked younger than he'd anticipated, maybe early 40s, but her presence made one thing clear. She missed nothing. "These are serious allegations." "They're also accurate," Harvey replied. He handed over his phone, scrolling to a section filled with logs, audio files, and notes. "My wife is plotting to kill me, Detective Winslow. I need someone capable of helping me prove it." "Lauren," she said, flipping through the contents, her frown deepening with every new detail. "This is exceptionally thorough. Most people in your shoes would have confronted their spouse already. Most people in my position wouldn't still be around to talk about it," he said. "Fair point," she replied, setting the device down. "Start at the beginning." For the next hour, Harvey laid everything out. The affair, the suspected poisonings, the hushed exchanges he'd caught on tape. Lauren jotted notes as he spoke, occasionally pausing to ask precise, pointed questions. "You're absolutely certain Lasker is involved?" No doubt, he said, producing more evidence. Photos, hotel bookings, time-stamped entries. They meet twice weekly, always the same suite at the Grand Meridian, booked under rotating shell companies. That's notable, she said, tapping her pen thoughtfully against her notepad. Lasker's name has come across my radar before, she admitted. 3 nearly identical situations in the past 5 years. Wealthy husbands, attractive wives, and so-called accidents that didn't quite add up. Her expression tightened. We could never nail it down. The wives always had airtight stories, and Lasker, she shrugged. He always stayed just out of reach. Until now, she studied him closely. You're either the most calculating victim I've ever encountered, or you're the break I need to finally take Lasker down. She leaned in, her tone firm and unwavering. But you need to understand something. If we do this, we do it my way. No freelancing, no surprises, one wrong move, and they both walk. I understand, he said. What's the first step? We can't go forward with hunches and guesswork, she told him. We need hard evidence, something irrefutable we can take to court. She pulled open a drawer and withdrew a sleek, unassuming object. Looks like a regular pen, she said, handing it to him, but it records both video and audio. In the 2 weeks that followed, Lauren and her team worked tirelessly to assemble their case. Discrete recording devices were installed throughout the home, with special emphasis on the kitchen and Harvey's secluded study. Every interaction with Alicia was documented on video, and any suspect material was logged and preserved. At a low-profile cafe across town, Lauren sat down with Harvey to go over the findings. She's had 3 meetings with Lasker just in the past 7 days, Lauren said, sliding a series of photos across the table toward him. This one here says the most, she added, pointing to a particular image. Look at what she's carrying. Harvey studied the picture. It showed Alicia leaving a neighborhood pharmacy, clutching a small paper bag, one he'd never seen before. Were we able to determine what she bought? We did, Lauren confirmed. It's a formulation containing digitalis, nearly identical to what turned up in your toxicology reports. She used a fake prescription to get it. Harvey gave a firm nod. That's exactly what we needed. But it still doesn't seal the case, he said after a pause. Lauren's expression darkened. We need something stronger. We have to link Lasker directly to the plot. Right now, the only thing we've proven is their affair. I can push her to open up about him, Harvey offered. She gets visibly rattled whenever I mention his name. Just be cautious, Lauren urged, her hand briefly resting on his forearm. These people know what they're doing, and they've pulled this off before. I know, he said in a low voice. I'm not taking any of this lightly. Once back home, Harvey stepped up his subtle inquiries, guiding their conversations to probe for vulnerabilities. One night at dinner, he brought up a recent real estate development in an offhand way. The rezoning finally went through, he mentioned. Once the legal work's done next week, that land is going to be worth a fortune. Alicia froze for half a second, then smiled too broadly. That's amazing, she said, the enthusiasm in her voice clearly forced. Tell me everything. It's the Riverside deal. Remember the one Roman Lasker was pushing hard last year? He kept his eyes on her face. He brought it up at the Thompson Gala, if you recall. I told you, I barely know him, she snapped. That's odd, Harvey replied. I ran into his assistant yesterday. She said you've been helping with their quarterly filings. Alicia's knife hit her plate with a sharp scrape. It's a tiny account, she said coldly. Not even worth discussing. Funny, he's been calling you about it at midnight. Her eyes widened. Excuse me? I checked the call history on our shared phone plan, he said calmly. There have been quite a few late-night business calls lately. I need to deal with something, she muttered, standing up so quickly her wine glass nearly tipped over. It's a work issue. Harvey heard her voice coming from the study minutes later, strained, urgent. He's suspicious? No, I've got this. Just hold on. Damn it, wait. The following morning, Alicia was unusually doting, insisting she make breakfast herself. Harvey played his part, acting as though nothing was amiss. He ignored the way her gaze followed every bite, or how her fingers tapped nervously against the kitchen counter when he barely touched his meal. Not hungry? She asked in a breezy tone. Just tired, he replied. Might take something to help me sleep tonight. Her face lit up. I picked up those sleeping pills you talked about. They're in the bathroom. Appreciate it, he said, brushing a kiss across her cheek. He felt her stiffen under the touch. You always know how to take care of me. Later that day, he met with Lauren once more. She's getting reckless, he told her. She's trying too hard. Lauren handed him a sealed plastic pouch. We had the pills analyzed, she said. They're loaded with enough sedatives to knock you out cold, maybe permanently. She produced a folder and opened it. As for Lasker, we traced large wire transfers to foreign banks. The timing aligns perfectly with when your symptoms began. She spread the statements across the table. We're nearly there, but we still need proof that ties both of them directly to the murder attempt. I think I know how we get that, Harvey said. He outlined his plan in detail. Everything has to go off flawlessly. We can't afford a single mistake. The opportunity arrived over the weekend. Alicia suggested a quiet evening in. Her tone was syrupy as she touched his arm. Just the two of us, she said. Like old times. I'll cook all your favorites. Harvey agreed, and contacted Lauren immediately. Her team deployed around the house, stationed in unmarked vehicles, keeping every exit in view. Inside, the hidden cameras were active and recording. That night, Alicia went all out. The dining table was elegantly set with their best china, candles flickered warmly, and the meal featured all his favorite dishes, even a vintage wine he had once casually mentioned. A toast, she said, lifting her glass. To us, a new beginning. Harvey raised his own and pretended to drink. You seem unusually cheerful tonight, he observed. I am, she said, her smile unwavering. She moved closer, the fragrance of her perfume slowly enveloping him. I've been thinking about what you mentioned, the insurance policy. Maybe you were right. We should revisit the details. Make sure everything's in order. He set his glass aside and turned to look at her directly. That's quite the coincidence. I spoke with our insurance agent just yesterday. Her smile faltered, if only slightly. Oh? What did you talk about? Mainly about those 3 phone calls you made. You asked very specific questions about my coverage, especially the parts dealing with accidental death benefits. She blinked quickly. I was being thorough. Just like you were when you started investigating Roman Lasker. Color drained from her face. What are you implying? The late-night visits to the Grand Meridian, the unusual transfers showing up in your private account. He stood up, slow and purposeful. You really thought I wouldn't piece it all together? Harvey, you're overreacting. Her hand quivered as she reached for her phone. We should call Dr. Mitchell. And say what? He asked, his voice sharp. That I'm paranoid? Mentally unstable? Just like you told the last doctor who questioned my symptoms? I didn't. Save it. He raised his phone, revealing a screen filled with photos, logs, and records, GPS data, images, timetables. I know everything, Alicia. Every lie, every pill, every meeting with Roman. She retreated a step, the careful facade slipping from her expression. You don't get it. Roman and we're looking at prison time. He gestured toward the window, where red and blue lights pulsed beyond the glass. And so are all your accomplices. Detective Winslow came through the door first, her team close behind. Alicia's face contorted as an officer read her Miranda rights aloud, her mask finally crumbling. You son of a bitch, she spat at Harvey. You gullible fool. I should have finished you off months ago, like you did with the others. Lauren stepped forward, her tone calm and even. Marcus Chin, Derek Price, Wesley Norwood? Alicia's eyes widened in panic. I don't know who. Save it for the interrogation, Lauren cut in. She signaled to the team. There's a lot to unpack. Harvey stayed composed as they led Alicia out. Her rage had been captured perfectly on hidden cameras. Her panic had given them exactly what they needed. When Alicia was gone, Lauren looked over at him. That could have ended badly. She might have had a weapon. She wouldn't risk it, he said, nodding at the 2 wine glasses. Have forensics test those. I'd bet they're laced with enough poison to kill 3 people. And what about Lasker? She asked. Harvey's smile was icy. Don't lose any sleep over Roman. He lifted Alicia's phone from the table, the screen still lit with a stream of frantic messages. We've got his confession, too. The battle wasn't finished, but for the first time in weeks, Harvey could clearly see how it would end. Alicia and Roman had picked the wrong man, someone they assumed would never catch on. Now they'd learn just how badly they had misjudged him. The morning of the trial dawned crisp and clear. Standing in front of his bedroom mirror, Harvey adjusted his charcoal suit with quiet precision. This wasn't just the opening of a legal proceeding. It marked the start of her downfall. His phone buzzed with a message from Lauren Winslow. Press is swarming. Use side entrance. See you at 0830. Outside the courthouse, reporters lined the stairs, cameras flashing like strobes. Harvey recognized a mix of local anchors and national correspondents. Few scandals drew more attention than an attempted murder in upper society. Inside, Lauren was waiting in a side room. She had swapped her usual field jacket for a tailored black suit that radiated authority. Channel 7's already dubbing her the Black Widow, she said, skipping pleasantries. They've connected her to the other victims. Good, Harvey replied, taking the coffee she handed him. The more scrutiny they're under, the better. Speaking of which, she added, lowering her voice, Roman's attorney made contact this morning. Sounds like they're feeling out a plea bargain. No deals, Harvey said flatly. I want them both to face full charges. That's what I expected you'd say. She offered a brief, approving nod. Ready to set a legal precedent? The courtroom was already packed when they entered. Harvey scanned the audience, spotting faces from their once-shared social circle. It was telling how many of them had shown up to witness Alicia's public humiliation, people who had sat at their dinner parties not long ago. Sarah Chun, the lead prosecutor, greeted them at the counsel table. She was known for her command of complex, high-profile cases, and it showed. She had spent hours, days, honing Harvey's testimony, drilling the facts into him until he could recite them in his sleep. Keep your composure, she murmured as they took their seats. They'll make the first mistake. Their case leans on spectacle, not substance. The bailiff's voice cut through the murmuring crowd. All rise. The Honorable Marcus Harrison now presiding. Judge Harrison entered the courtroom with deliberate authority, his silver hair neatly combed, his features stern and unwavering. At 65, his reputation was built on enforcing order and refusing theatrics. You may be seated, he said briskly. Ms. Chun, your opening statement, he prompted. Sarah rose, the sharp sound of her heels striking against the varnished floor. Your Honor, esteemed members of the jury, she began, this case centers on an act of betrayal, one that was deliberate, calculated, and deeply personal. You will see that Alicia Cross, along with Roman Lasker, orchestrated the slow poisoning of her husband. This was no crime of passion. It was methodical, driven by self-interest, and utterly without compassion. She laid out a chronological narrative, each point delivered with precision. The clandestine relationship, the poison dosages, the financial trail that tied the accused together. The jurors leaned forward, drawn in by the methodical pacing of her presentation. Harvey never looked away from Alicia as Chun continued her remarks. Sitting beside her lawyer, Marcus Walsh, Alicia appeared subdued in a conservative Navy ensemble, the very image of a falsely accused woman. Her blonde hair was pulled back in a modest style. Her makeup was barely noticeable. The glamorous figure she'd once been, immaculate wardrobe, designer accessories, had been replaced by this more demure version. It was a calculated transformation designed to inspire sympathy. Walsh launched into his opening remarks with performative indignation. "Ladies and gentlemen," he addressed the jury, walking with measured steps, "what you're about to witness isn't justice, it's a character assassination. A loyal wife of 12 years is being scapegoated by a man who couldn't cope with his own failures." He swung an accusatory arm in Harvey's direction. Mr. Cross, facing collapse in both business and personal life, fabricated these charges to punish the one person who stood by him through every setback. He paused mid-aisle, letting his words sink in. The prosecution's evidence is selective, designed to reinforce their version of events, but the truth is far less complex. It's the story of a man unraveling and turning on the woman who supported him the most. Harvey's expression remained impassive, but under the table his fists clenched. Let them dramatize and deflect. The facts would speak on their own. Over the following 2 weeks, the prosecution methodically laid out its case. With each witness, more damning evidence came to light. Toxicology experts dissected the deadly chemical mixture found in Harvey's system. Financial investigators traced intricate transactions connecting Alicia and Roman, revealing a pattern of deception. Hotel staff confirmed seeing the pair repeatedly, always checking into the same suite, often under fake business names. Then came Dr. Preston, the ER doctor who treated Harvey during his collapse. Her statement left no ambiguity. "The level of digitalis in Mr. Cross's blood was highly irregular," she said with firm clarity. "Combined with the additional substances we identified, I can definitively say this was not accidental. These are not compounds one would encounter by happenstance in food or drink. They were administered deliberately." Walsh immediately sprang into a sharp cross-examination. "Doctor, isn't it possible that Mr. Cross ingested these substances on his own, to implicate my client?" "Objection," Chun interjected, rising quickly. "Speculative." "Sustained," Judge Harrison ruled sharply, striking his gavel. "Tread carefully, Mr. Walsh." Dr. Preston remained composed throughout. The increasing toxin levels along with the consistency in his symptoms over time clearly point to external repeated poisoning. The clinical data supports this beyond reasonable doubt. Next came the video evidence. The courtroom grew still as surveillance footage played. Alicia tampering with drinks, observing Harvey's reactions, speaking softly on nighttime calls with Roman. "We documented more than 300 instances of contact between the two during the period Mr. Cross was falling ill," testified the digital analyst. "Many of these coincide with the days he experienced his worst symptoms." When Harvey finally took the stand, an unusual calm settled over him. This was what he had trained for. Months of meticulous documentation and internal resolve had led to this moment. "State your full name for the record," said Judge Harrison. "Harvey Julian Cross." Sarah approached the witness stand. "Mr. Cross, please describe the series of events that led to your hospitalization last October." Harvey spoke for nearly an hour, recounting everything: the creeping doubt, the metallic aftertaste in his coffee, the hospital's toxicology report. His tone was steady, each statement deliberate and composed. "When did you first begin to suspect your wife?" Chun asked. "When I noticed a pattern. She insisted on preparing my meals and drinks, and not long after I'd get sick. At first it was minor, nausea, headaches, but then it got worse." Walsh stood for his cross-examination, his voice sharpening. "Isn't it true, Mr. Cross, that your real estate development in River Heights was facing major setbacks? That you were losing investor confidence?" "No," Harvey replied evenly. "In fact, we were ahead of timeline and under budget. The Q3 financials verify that." "And you have a documented past with alcohol, don't you?" Walsh pressed. "Couldn't that have impaired your judgment?" "Objection," Chun snapped. "Irrelevant. It pertains to the witness's reliability, Walsh countered. Go ahead, Mr. Walsh, the judge instructed, but proceed with caution. Harvey locked eyes with the attorney, unwavering. There's no history of substance abuse in any of my medical records, he said calmly. I've never struggled with addiction. The only illicit substances found in me were introduced by your client, he added. That's the irony, isn't it? You gathered all this so-called evidence, but never once addressed your wife about it. It's as if you were preparing a court case instead of seeking honesty. I was focused on survival, Harvey said, his voice quiet but firm, and on ensuring she'd be brought to justice. The atmosphere in the courtroom changed dramatically when Alicia took the stand. She played the role of a broken spouse with uncanny precision. Her testimony was a calculated display of emotional vulnerability. I was scared, she said, her voice barely above a whisper as tears glittered in the light. Roman had uncovered some financial missteps I made years ago. He said he'd ruin me if I didn't go along with his plan, she claimed. Did Mr. Lasker pressure you to hurt your husband? Walsh asked in a soft tone. He told me it would be easy, that nobody would suspect a thing. He knew how to use substances that would make it look natural. She dabbed her eyes with a tissue. I never wanted Harvey to suffer, she said. I loved him, truly. But Alicia's demeanor changed the moment Chen began cross-examination. His delivery was cold and exacting. Mrs. Cross, please look at People's Exhibit 47, he said, activating the monitor for the courtroom. A stream of text messages appeared on screen. These texts, Chen said, show you complaining that the poison wasn't working fast enough. In another, you talk about increasing the amount. Were you coerced when you wrote those? I was being used, she faltered. Is that so? Chen said, tilting his head. Then explain this message you sent on September 15th to Mr. Lasker. Quote, once he's dead, everything is ours. The company, the properties, the insurance. No one will suspect. Does that sound like someone under duress? Alicia's careful performance began to unravel. You don't understand, she pleaded. Harvey was controlling, constantly suspicious. Suspicious of what? Chen asked. Your affair? Or your plan to poison him? He paused briefly before delivering the final blow. Or was he wary because this wasn't your first attempt? The courtroom erupted with shocked murmurs. Walsh jumped to his feet. Objection, highly prejudicial. Withdrawn, Chen responded smoothly. But the impact was already made. The jury had seen the cracks in Alicia's carefully crafted persona. The trial took a decisive turn when Roman Lasker took the stand. He entered composed, leaning on charm and measured denials. He hadn't anticipated the methodical unraveling that Chen would deliver. Mr. Lasker, she said, can you account for these wire transfers? She displayed a network of intricate financial transactions. Specifically, these payments to offshore accounts tied to shell companies managed by Mrs. Cross? They were legitimate business dealings, he replied coolly, completely above board. And how do you explain these phone records? She asked. Hundreds of calls and late-night texts between you and Mrs. Cross, many referencing what you both called the perfect solution to her Harvey issue? Lasker's confidence faltered. You're twisting the meaning. Am I? Chen pressed. Let's discuss Marcus Chun, Derek Price, Wesley Norwood, all affluent, all dead under suspicious circumstances. And each one had a wife with connections to you, she continued. Each one had traces of similar toxic substances in their system. The color drained from Lasker's face. He glanced at his attorney, who quickly requested a recess. Everything shifted after that. When the court reconvened, Lasker's lawyer stood to make a surprising announcement. Your Honor, he said, my client wishes to deliver a statement voluntarily. Mr. Lasker, Judge Harrison asked, are you aware of the consequences of this action? Yes, Your Honor. The polished mask was gone. Lasker looked visibly shaken. I'd like to correct my earlier testimony. What followed was a full confession. He admitted to targeting wealthy men through their spouses. He described how he supplied poisons, created hidden financial channels, and orchestrated deaths to look like accidents. He named Alicia as his most recent partner in crime, eager to inherit Harvey's wealth. From the gallery, Harvey watched as Alicia's expression contorted in rage while Roman betrayed her. Their elaborate scheme was unraveling before the court's eyes, and she knew it. The jury took fewer than 6 hours to reach a decision. On the charge of first-degree attempted murder, how do you find the defendant? Guilty. On the charge of conspiracy to commit murder? Guilty. Each remaining count, fraud, money laundering, criminal conspiracy, was met with the same answer. Guilty. Judge Harrison delivered his final ruling. Mrs. Cross, he said, your crimes reveal a ruthless indifference to human life, motivated purely by greed. You are sentenced to 30 years in prison without the possibility of parole. Roman Lasker, having cooperated, received 25 years. Additional charges were pending in 3 other jurisdictions. After the proceedings ended, Harvey encountered Roman in a corridor outside the courtroom. The man who had nearly taken his life tried to muster false confidence, but his fear was unmistakable. Harvey, Roman said, voice strained, I just want to say, don't waste your breath, Harvey said, his voice sharp as glass. It's finished, Roman. Your reputation, your business, your freedom, it's all gone. And if you ever manage to claw your way back, even try to rebuild, I'll be there to shut it down. He didn't pause. Everyone will see you for what you really are, he added coldly, a smug, toxic parasite. For the first time, the cracks showed in Roman's carefully curated composure. You think you've won? He spat. You have no clue what's coming next? I do, actually, Harvey replied, the edges of his grin razor thin. That Riverside deal you were so desperate for? I scooped it up for a fraction of its value. Funny what happens when someone's portfolio goes up in smoke thanks to a triple homicide indictment. He turned to leave, but hesitated just before stepping through the door. And one more thing, Roman, he said, not bothering to look back. The board knows all about your little talent for manipulation. From here on out, you'll be a pariah. No more lackeys to bend to your will. Outside, Lauren stood with her back to the car, arms folded, a quiet sense of victory lighting up her face. 3 killers off the streets, she said with a nod. Not bad for a few months' effort. She paused for a beat. 4, if you count the DA's new angle on Dr. Mitchell. Turns out he was fabricating patient records to cover for them. We're tearing the whole thing apart. She gave a single, satisfied nod. Methodical. I had the right mentor, Harvey said, glancing up at the courthouse behind him. Think they'll try to appeal? They can give it a shot, she replied, but the evidence is airtight. And Roman's signed confession nailed it shut, Harvey added. Now he'll sell out every last accomplice just to salvage a scrap of his life. 1 week later, a letter came in the mail, from prison. Alicia's handwriting was unmistakable. Harvey read it once. Frantic remorse, tear-stained excuses, declarations of regret, promises to be better. Without a second thought, he dropped it into the shredder. No response. The case took over the media cycle. A high-profile developer and his wife brought down for orchestrating a murder scheme driven by greed. Analysts picked apart the trial. Magazines published deep dives on the couple. How cold they were, how deliberate, how perfectly their empire had been unraveled. Harvey didn't watch any of it. His focus was elsewhere, on rebuilding, on moving forward, on laying the foundation for something new. River Heights was only the beginning. That evening, as he drove through the city, the skyline gleamed under the fading light, bathed in the last amber glow of the sun. He thought briefly of the woman he once believed in, the life she had helped fabricate, every moment of it a calculated illusion to cover a murderer's path. She'd mistaken his loyalty for naivety. That misjudgment had cost her everything. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new beginnings. But for tonight, Harvey Cross gave himself the rare gift of quiet satisfaction. He hadn't just weathered their betrayal, he had dismantled the entire illusion they lived behind. Their careers, their power, their freedom, obliterated. And in his eyes, that was justice done right. We've reached the end of one story, but don't rush off. There's another engaging tale just ahead. Let's begin. I'd gotten home about 15 minutes earlier than usual and was surprised to find that Molly hadn't arrived yet. She'd been staying late at work more often these days, but even on her busiest evenings, she usually beat me home and had something cooking by the time I walked through the door. I grabbed a beer from the fridge and was just reaching for my phone to check in with her about dinner when it started ringing. "Hey, babe," I said as I answered. "Still stuck at the office?" "I am," Molly replied, her voice bright. "I'm just finishing up. But I've got a little surprise for you. I think you'll like it. At least, I really hope you do." "Now you've got me curious," I said with a laugh. "But listen, we need to talk when you get in, all right? Don't vanish on me. We've got some things to go over. Want me to whip something up, or should I order something in?" "No need for any of that tonight," she said, her tone suddenly more tender. "Not right away anyway. Just remember that I love you more than anything, and I can't wait to be with you tonight." "I love you too," I said quietly. "I'll be right here." Exactly 20 minutes later, Molly stepped through the door. The first thing I noticed was that she looked somewhat rumpled. Her blouse was creased, her tights were gone, and her makeup looked smudged, her hair less styled than usual. "Tough night at work?" I asked. "You look a little frazzled. Everything okay?" She didn't answer right away. Instead, she walked straight to me, slid her arms around my shoulders, and held my gaze with a look I couldn't quite read. "Jack," she said in a hushed, intimate tone, "you know I love you deeply, and I know you love me too. You've always shown me that, and I've never doubted it. You'd do just about anything for me, wouldn't you?" "Of course I would, Molly. Just about anything. I mean, murder might be pushing it, but short of that, I'm all in. Why? What's going on?" I gave a nervous laugh, half expecting her to dive into one of her hypothetical scenarios. She had a habit of springing strange ideas on me from time to time. "It's not one of those," she said, her voice steady. "Just let me say what I need to say. And then, you can ask whatever you want. Is that fair?" "Fair enough," I agreed. "You've always been generous with me," she began. "You've let me make the everyday calls, where we travel, what we watch, even what you wear sometimes. You've always given me freedom and treated me with such care. Lately, I've been talking to my boss, Ralph, about our marriage. I told him how things are between us. He had some thoughts, and they stuck with me." She paused for a breath, then went on. "He recommended I read some stories about couples where the woman takes the lead, where the man surrenders control. I didn't think much of it at first, but the stories got to me. They stirred something unexpected." "Molly," I said gently, "you know I don't mind letting you take the reins on things that matter to you, vacations, date nights, even picking my clothes. But you also know I've handled the major stuff, buying our home, choosing our investments, planning for our future. That's not being submissive. That's compromise. That's love. That's making room for you. My dad always used to say, a happy marriage means not sweating the small stuff. And he believed almost everything was small stuff if you looked at it the right way." "I know," she said quietly, "but when I compare you to Ralph, the contrast is sharp. He's assertive, commanding. He dominates every room he's in. He calls himself an alpha male, decisive, powerful, in charge. And he told me something about men like you. He said you're sweet and caring, yes, but that you fall into the beta category. That the submissive side is already there in you, whether you see it or not." "That sounds like something out of a cheap self-help book," I said, clearly unimpressed. "What are you actually trying to tell me?" For the first time, the sure look in her eyes faltered. Guilt crept in. "Jack," she said softly, "Ralph told me he wants to share something with me, an experience I've never had. He says he has something special to offer, and over the past few weeks, after hours, we've gotten physical. Not everything, but enough. I've touched him, explored him. Well, he's a lot. And yes, I crossed a line. I shouldn't have, but it lit a fire in me. I've been fantasizing about him ever since." I didn't speak, but my body tightened with the weight of her words. "He believes this could actually benefit us. He says men like you, men who care, who yield, might even enjoy watching. And even if you don't, he swears the act of taking me back after he's had me will light a fire between us we've never known." I stared at her, waiting for her to break, to laugh, to say it was all a sick joke. But her expression didn't change. It was real. "You can't be serious," I said, my voice strained. "You actually expect me to be okay with this? Molly, what the hell are you thinking?" "Please, Jack," she said, her voice pleading. "Try to understand. I love you. I do. But I believe this could unlock something between us. Something deeper." "So you've already slept with him?" I asked, unable to contain the anger in my voice. "No, Jack," she said. "We haven't gone that far." "Don't do that," I snapped. "Don't downplay this. You've touched him. You let him touch you. You've let him into your mind, into your fantasies. That's not nothing. That's betrayal. So tell me the truth. Has he had sex with you?" She looked away, unable to meet my eyes. "No," she whispered. "Not yet. But he did touch me. Intimately. While we were driving here together." I felt the breath leave my chest. "Driving here?" I repeated, stunned. "What do you mean he drove you here?" "He's outside," she said, barely above a whisper. "He's in the car, waiting while we talk. And when we're done, he's coming up. We're going to be together. Intimately. If you'd rather just watch, go right ahead. Ralph would probably love an audience. But if you'd prefer not to, once it's done, you can come upstairs. I'll let you have me, any way you've ever imagined. You can't be serious. He's out there right now, and you're letting him touch you, actually buying into whatever pitch he's throwing. The thought of touching you after he has makes me sick. So tell me, Molly, what if I refuse? What if I tell you to send him away?" Her face changed instantly, panic flashing across her eyes. She hadn't expected that answer. It was obvious she'd come in assuming I'd just accept it. Now, she looked like she was scrambling, falling back on lines she'd practiced with her slimy boss. "Jack, you love me. You always do what I ask. And this is what I want now. I've decided. I know it'll be good for us. Just try it one time. I bet we'll love it and want more. I'm going upstairs to get ready. Look my best. For him. And for you. Let him in. Wait downstairs. You'll understand, Jack. I know you care about me, and I believe, deep down, you want this too. It'll be good for us. I know it. Right." "Well, thanks, Molly. Now I understand exactly how much those vows mean to you. Go ahead. Get dressed. While you're doing that, I'll go have a little chat with your new companion," I yelled. "Jack, he's not my friend. This isn't about that. It's about dominance. Pure, raw energy. I'll always love you. You'll always be mine, and I'll always belong to you." She walked over, tried to wrap her arms around me, leaned in for a kiss, but I shoved her away. The hurt and shock on her face said she didn't see that coming. "Don't let me stop you, Molly. This is clearly happening with or without my consent. And if not today, you'd have found another way, maybe without even telling me. One way or another, that line's already been crossed. So go on. Get ready." She froze for a second, guilt painted across her face. But then she turned and climbed the stairs. Halfway up, she paused and looked back. "You'll see, Jack. You won't forget this. You're right about that, Molly. This one's staying with me forever." Once she disappeared upstairs, I walked over to her handbag, I pulled out her car keys, house keys, and her phone. Then I opened her wallet and removed our joint credit card. In the kitchen, I grabbed a tea towel from the drawer, dug a few zip ties out of the utility tray, and lifted the largest carving knife from the rack. Then I stepped outside to meet Ralph. He was sitting behind the wheel of his shiny Mercedes, glued to his phone. When he saw me, he lowered the window and smirked. "Hey, Jackie boy. Guess your wife filled you in. Relax. You'll still get your chance with her, for now. Eventually, she'll be all mine. You'll like it." He never got the chance to finish. I leaned in and threw a full-force left hook straight into his nose, powered by every ounce of rage I had. I felt the cartilage break and watched blood explode across his face, his designer suit, and the leather interior. I tossed him the towel. "Here, you'll need this, Ralphie." He clutched it to his face, and while he did, I slipped a zip tie around his left wrist, looped it through the headrest post, and yanked it tight. Then I flung the car door open and slammed another punch, this one straight into his crotch. He bent over as far as the restraint allowed, curling into a knot, groaning and gasping through the blood and pain. One hand clung to the wheel. That gave me the opening I needed. I wrapped the second zip tie around his free wrist and secured it to the steering wheel. I leaned in close to his mangled, bleeding face and murmured, "What's wrong, tough guy? Not so alpha now, are you? You arrogant piece of trash. You misread everything, me, the situation, all of it, and now you're going to pay for that. Too bad for you. Molly's expecting a show, so let's give her one." I crossed the yard and grabbed the garden hose, the heavy metal nozzle still attached. Perfect. I swung it overhead like a flail, built up momentum, and then crashed it into the passenger side window. The glass blew inward in a spray of safety glass shards. I circled around and went for the windshield. I couldn't shatter it fully, but two vicious strikes left it splintered like a spider web hit by a hammer. While I was at it, I took out both headlights. That felt especially good. Then I strolled back to the driver's side, chuckling. "Looks like your precious car's due for some body work," I said. From my back pocket, I pulled the knife. I leaned into the car, pressed the blade gently against his neck, right where his jugular throbbed. In a calm, flat voice, I asked, "So, how many times did you screw my wife while feeding her that fantasy that I'd be okay with it?" His eyes widened in fear. His voice trembled. "Twice, okay? Just twice, in the last couple of weeks. It didn't mean anything. It was just sex. That's all it was for both of us. Please, just let me go. You'll never hear from me again. I swear." I stared at him like he was nothing, less than nothing. "I'm not going to kill you. Not now. But if the cops come knocking, if a single word from this makes it back to me, I'll find you. And yeah, maybe I'll go to prison. Maybe I don't get bail. But don't fool yourself. If you cross that line, I will come back. And next time, you won't walk away. Maybe I'll do time for this. Maybe I won't. Either way, know this. You haven't seen the last of me. I'll find you. Could be in a dimly lit parking garage or stepping into an elevator alone. Wherever it is, I'll be there. And when I am, I'll cut your throat wide open and spit in your face while you die. That's the future you chose. This might be the last time you ever lay eyes on me. Or maybe you'll spend months, years even, glancing over your shoulder, wondering when I'll show up to finish what I started." I leaned toward him, drove the knife into the cushion beside him, and said, "Molly's going to need that blade to free you, so she can either help you flee or rush you to the hospital. Doesn't matter to me. Just make sure she disappears." I went back into the house. As soon as the front door clicked shut behind me, Molly's voice drifted down from upstairs. "Ralph? That you? Come up here. Everything okay with Jack?" She sounded lighthearted, almost cheerful, and I thought, is she really this naive? "Molly," I called up. "Ralph's still in the car. He says he wants to speak with you. Might be rethinking some things." A minute later, she came downstairs. I figured she still had the lingerie I'd bought her on beneath that robe. She asked, "What happened, Jack?" Did you two clear the air?" "I let him know what kind of future he's looking at," I replied. "You should probably go talk to him." She cocked her head, puzzled. "Jack, don't forget I love you. This is going to make us stronger." "Yeah, Molly. I can already feel the improvement." She gave me a weak smile and stepped outside. I shut the door behind her and locked it. Then I went into the garage and disabled the automatic opener. I was halfway up the stairs when her voice erupted. "You asshole, Jack! Get out here and fix this now!" I didn't answer. Instead, I walked upstairs, opened the closet, and grabbed one of the smaller suitcases. I started filling it. Her underwear, bras, socks went in first, then a few pairs of jeans, some tees, a couple sweaters. I moved into the bathroom and swept her makeup, brushes, perfume, and toiletries into the bag. Back in the closet, I grabbed her sneakers and headed to the spare room overlooking the driveway. I raised the window, leaned out, and yelled, "Molly, you're probably going to want this," before hurling the suitcase down. With any luck, a few of the perfume bottles had shattered. Didn't matter to me either way. I didn't care anymore. I tossed the sneakers next, aiming at her head, but she dodged both. Her eyes welled up as she stared up at me. "Jack, why? I thought this is what you wanted. I never meant to upset you. I can't believe what you did to Ralph. He's my boss, for God's sake. Please, just open the door. We can talk." I stared back and said, "Molly, I don't even know where to begin with the idiocy you've been spouting since you got home. This scheme of yours. What? Trying to reduce me to some passive spectator? What was going through your head? Did you have a stroke? Are you on drugs? Or have you always been this petty and self-absorbed? None of it matters anymore. Just leave. Take Ralph to a hospital. He'll need it. And while you're at it, ask him what happens if so much as a whisper of this gets back to the police or anyone else. I'll pack up the rest of your crap and you can tell me where to drop it. But don't ever set foot in this house again." I slammed the window shut, went back downstairs, opened the front door, and hurled her purse at her chest. This time, it hit. Before I shut the door for good, I couldn't resist. "Was that theatrical enough for you, Molly?" I locked the door, went into the kitchen, and opened my second beer of the day. It occurred to me I should call my lawyer, just in case the cops showed up. I also needed a recommendation for a solid divorce attorney. Out the front window, I saw Ralph still cursing at her while she sawed at the zip ties. She hefted the suitcase into the trunk. He climbed into the back seat, laid down, and she got behind the wheel, crying, rattled, slowly backing out of the driveway. Once the rush wore off, reality set in. I sat there, stunned, trying to make sense of how far off the rails Molly had gone, and what I'd done to her boss. I had come inches from slitting his throat. Over what? Over her? She wasn't worth that. I chuckled, imagining all the garbage Ralph must have fed her, that he was the alpha and I was the beta, as if being a decent, patient husband, someone who let his wife have the last word on small stuff, made me weak. I did that out of love, to keep our marriage balanced. She mistook kindness for submission. Thought she could parade some clown like Ralph in front of me and I'd take it quietly. Unreal. She kept her distance for the next few days. I didn't hear a thing. My phone lit up with unknown numbers. I figured they were hers, since I still had her phone. Eventually, a voicemail came through in her voice, pleading with me to call back. Said she wanted to talk, to work things out. I knew it was only a matter of time before I'd have to face her again. Since no patrol cars had rolled up to the house and no cops had shown up to throw cuffs on me, I figured I'd managed to sidestep a serious mess. Now all that was left was to see this thing through. I called Molly and told her to stop by in about an hour so we could have a talk. Once I hung up, I gathered everything in the house that I believed belonged to her and placed it all near the front door. Then I went out to the porch steps and waited. When she finally arrived, she was in her own vehicle, one I guessed she must have picked up from her workplace. I didn't know if she'd been crashing at Ralph's, staying with her parents, leaning on friends, or holed up in a motel, and to my own surprise, I realized I didn't really care. She stepped out of the car and offered a cautious wave before walking over and taking a seat beside me. Her face was a wreck of conflicting emotions: guilt, shame, regret, and awkwardness all competing for control. Her eyes were puffy, her complexion patchy. It was plain she'd spent several nights crying and getting very little rest. She looked at me, her expression a mix of desperation and apology, and said, "Jack, I'm sorry. I truly am. I can't believe I let Ralph talk me into bringing up the idea of being with him, especially with you sitting there, acting like you accepted it, maybe even enjoyed the thought. I've replayed it all in my head for weeks," she went on, "and I still can't understand how I let myself believe any of what he was saying. Maybe it was the way he took charge, how he made it sound like some grand, transformative experience. He made me think I'd be living out some wild passion, with him, and somehow with you too. It sounds crazy now. I must have lost my mind for a while. But I'm clear-headed again. I love you, Jack. Only you. I want to make this right. I'll spend my life proving it to you. Please, give me a chance to earn your forgiveness." I looked straight ahead and replied, keeping my tone neutral. "So, tell me, Molly, was Ralph everything you imagined? Did he give you the mind-blowing experience he promised? Was he as impressive as you hoped?" Her body recoiled at the words. "Please stop, Jack," she said. "I didn't sleep with him. Not after that night. And after what you said to him, he let me go. He's scared out of his mind, won't come near me. And by the way, he spent 2 nights in the hospital because of you. Told them he got jumped on the way there, and we stuck with that story just to keep you out of trouble." "Well," I said, "he wasn't wrong to stay away." Her eyes were bloodshot now. "What do you want from me, Jack?" "I want you," she answered quickly. "I want to come back home. I want to be your wife again. Please, let me fix this. I'll do whatever it takes to rebuild what we had." "We can come back from this," she said, her voice growing more urgent. "We can be stronger than we ever were. I've made up my mind, Jack. You're the only person I've ever truly loved. Please, just say I can come home." I inhaled slowly and gave her my answer. "Molly, we were in love for 2 years before we got married, and we've been married for 3 more. That's 5 years together. And after all that, you still got restless. You got bored with our life, or at least with what we shared in private. Maybe you think you still love me, but one thing's obvious. You don't respect me. You wouldn't have suggested what you did, being with your boss while I sat by, if you had any real understanding of love, or even basic decency. And even if nothing happened after that night, Ralph told me enough. You were with him more than once in the weeks before everything blew up. You chose him. You gave in to your impulses and forgot about your vows. So what happens later? What happens in year 7, or 10, or 20? How many times do I have to worry you'll stray again when you're bored or looking for something new?" "That's not fair, Jack," she protested. "I would never do that again." "You already did," I said. "So the word never doesn't carry much weight anymore." "I've looked at this from every angle," I said, trying to keep calm. "We don't have kids. There's barely anything saved. The house is all we've got, and there's not much equity in it anyway. Staying in this marriage feels like more of a gamble than walking away. I really believe you'll cheat again. It's just a matter of time. Only next time you'll be careful. You'll hide it. And I'll be the guy who trusted someone he shouldn't have. That's the part that hurts the most. I don't respect you anymore. And I can't stay married to someone I no longer respect, especially someone who doesn't respect me." Tears streamed down her face, and soon she was sobbing. But I wasn't done. "We're getting divorced, Molly. You'll keep your car, I'll keep mine. We'll split the money we have and sell the house. We're both still young enough to start over. And I want that. I want a clean break, with someone who knows how to love and respect me the right way. I've already reached out to a lawyer to begin the process. You should do the same. It doesn't have to get messy if we're both reasonable." "Now come on, let's get your stuff in the car," I said. "After that, You can go find whatever alpha types you think you need to make you feel complete. I'll start packing my things next week so we can get the house listed." "No, Jack, please, don't do this. You have to forgive me," she begged. "I need you. I love you. I do respect you," she insisted. "It was a terrible mistake. He manipulated me. Don't throw everything away over that." "I'm sorry, Molly," I said quietly. "There's nothing left to talk about. It's time we both moved on. And if we ever bump into each other somewhere down the road, let's just nod, say hello, and keep walking. I really hope you find what you were looking for." Then I got up and started carrying her things to the car. Once everything was packed, I turned to her, said goodbye, walked back into the house, and shut the door behind me, closing it not just on her, but on the life we once had. Our story has come to an end. What do you think about this story? Share your thoughts in the comments. And if you enjoyed the way I tell stories, head over to my channel and check out my other videos. May the force be with you. See you soon, my friend.